Every time you avoid confrontation, you trade your peace for quiet, and they are not the same. Real peace is born from honesty, not avoidance. It takes courage to face tension, to speak truth when your voice shakes, and to stand tall when the world expects you to shrink. Fearless confrontation isn't about winning arguments. It's about reclaiming your dignity, protecting your boundaries, and living without apology. The moment you stop running from conflict, you begin to rise above it. This is confrontation is freedom, the courage to stand your ground. Fear has always been misunderstood. We treat it like an enemy, something to crush, silence, or escape from. But fear, in its purest form, is a signal. It tells you where your edges are, where your growth hides, and what part of you is still waiting to evolve. The problem isn't fear itself, it's the way we run from it before it can teach us. Every great transformation begins at the edge of discomfort, in that trembling space where courage is still being born. There's a moment before every confrontation where your body tightens, your mind races, and your voice hesitates. That's the threshold between who you were and who you could become. Most people retreat there, convincing themselves that silence is safer. But safety is a mirage. It protects your comfort, not your confidence. When you choose to face that moment instead of flee it, fear turns from a wall into a mirror reflecting your untapped strength. Fear is not the absence of power, it's the call to find it. When your heart pounds and your hands shake, your body isn't betraying you, it's preparing you. That rush of energy is life reminding you that you care, that something meaningful is at stake. Strength isn't about never trembling, it's about learning to move through the tremble with grace. Those who walk with fear instead of against it discover a clarity others never touch. Most people believe courage appears first and fear fades after. The truth is reversed. Courage rises only because fear is present. You cannot be brave without something to face. Every confrontation, internal or external, offers you a chance to meet a version of yourself that's more grounded, more awake, more real. Each time you resist running, you teach your spirit endurance. Each time you speak up despite the shaking, you become more unbreakable. Avoidance promises relief, but delivers weakness. Every time you turn away from a difficult truth, you reinforce the idea that you can't handle it. Fear feeds on avoidance. It grows in the dark corners of your silence. But the moment you shine awareness on it, when you say, "I see you, and I'm still here," the spell breaks. The power you thought fear had over you dissolves into clarity. You stop being hunted and start becoming whole. Think about the times you avoided confrontation, not because you didn't know what to say, but because you didn't want to feel the tension. That tension, uncomfortable as it is, was the birthplace of growth. We escape from fear because it feels like pain, yet the pain of avoidance lingers far longer. Strength isn't built in calm seas, but in waves that test your balance. The very storm you fear teaches you how to steer. Fear can disguise itself as logic. It whispers, "Wait for the right time, don't make things worse," or "It's not worth it." These thoughts sound wise, but often they're excuses dressed as reason. Fear is clever. It will always find a story to justify your retreat. The antidote isn't recklessness, it's awareness. Once you see fear's disguise, it loses control over your choices. Awareness, not denial, is the beginning of mastery. True strength begins with self-honesty. When you admit you're afraid not to the world, but to yourself, something shifts. You stop pretending to be fearless and start learning to be brave. Fear thrives in secrecy, honesty starves it. The more you bring it into the open, the smaller it becomes. It's not the absence of fear that defines power, but the willingness to stand within it without losing your voice. There is a hidden wisdom inside fear that most people never uncover. It points directly to what matters most. You only fear losing what you deeply value: your peace, your respect, your belonging. When you explore the root of fear, instead of avoiding it, you discover your priorities. Fear becomes a compass, showing you where to direct your courage. It stops being a shadow and becomes a teacher, guiding you toward truth. You learn the most about yourself when your comfort ends. Growth begins where ease dies. The voice that says, "I can't," is not your weakness, it's your threshold. Every confrontation is an invitation to walk past that voice, to prove it wrong, not with arrogance, but with calm certainty. Strength is quiet, it doesn't shout. It simply stands, breath steady, heart open, unafraid to be seen. In moments of fear, we often look outward for rescue, a reassuring word, a sign, a promise that things will be okay. But the power you seek doesn't come from outside approval. It awakens when you realize no one else can save you from what you're avoiding. The fear you face alone becomes the strength that never leaves you. That's how self-trust is born, one confrontation at a time. To transform fear, you must stop trying to erase it and start listening to it. Ask what it's protecting, what story it's repeating, what wound it's hiding. Fear isn't there to punish you. It's there to remind you that you care about your life. When you meet it with curiosity instead of judgment, it turns into insight. You stop fearing fear itself, and that's where liberation begins. Strength isn't measured by how loud you roar, but by how still you can remain when your world trembles. To face confrontation with grace is to own your power without aggression. It's to speak truth without turning it into a weapon. Fear wants you to react. Wisdom asks you to respond. The stronger you become, the less you need to prove, and the more your calm speaks for you. There comes a day when you realize fear no longer controls you. It informs you. You still feel it, but it no longer decides for you. That is real freedom, not the absence of fear, but the mastery of response. Every confrontation you've survived becomes a scar of wisdom, proof that fear is temporary, but strength is permanent. You begin to thank fear, not resent it, because it shaped the person who can finally stand unshaken. The lesson unfolds. Fear was never your enemy. It was the mentor that forced you to find your core. Without fear, there is no courage. Without confrontation, no clarity. Without tension, no transformation. You don't overcome fear, you outgrow it. Each time you walk through it, you reclaim another piece of yourself. This is the quiet triumph of the brave learning that fear doesn't weaken you. It reveals that you were powerful all along. Truth is rarely comfortable. It exposes the hidden corners we prefer to ignore, the doubts, insecurities, and contradictions that define our humanity. Most people run from truth because it demands transformation. It doesn't whisper what we want to hear. It tells us what we need to face. To stand tall in uncomfortable truths is to make peace with imperfection and accept that growth often begins with a sting. The truth humbles before it heals, and that humility is the foundation of strength. When you stop hiding from the truth, you begin to see yourself clearly for the first time. You recognize the masks you've worn to be accepted and the roles you've played to feel safe. It's not an easy sight, the realization that you've betrayed yourself in moments of fear or convenience. But honesty, though heavy, is the only weight that builds endurance. Pretending is exhausting. Authenticity, though painful, is liberating. The truth is not cruel, it's cleansing. To stand tall in uncomfortable truths, you must stop confusing comfort with peace. Comfort can be an illusion, a padded cage lined with denial. Peace is what happens when the noise of pretending fades. It takes courage to look directly at reality and say, "I choose to stay." That single decision to remain present when everything in you wants to run is the essence of inner power. Real peace isn't found in escape. It's found in unwavering honesty. We often demand truth from others, but rarely offer it to ourselves. We say we want clarity, yet fear what it might destroy. The truth can dismantle illusions we've built for years, relationships that were convenient, beliefs that kept us safe, and identities that earned us approval. But destruction isn't always loss. Sometimes it's the start of rebuilding something real. Standing tall in truth means allowing the old to crumble so the authentic can rise. When truth arrives, it rarely knocks softly. It shakes foundations, questions, loyalties, and exposes attachments. It might make you feel lost before it makes you found. But in that confusion lies the beginning of understanding the realization that truth doesn't come to punish, but to realign. What breaks you open is often what sets you free. The pain of seeing reality clearly is the price of genuine self-respect. Facing truth is an act of rebellion in a world that rewards comfort and conformity. People will tell you to let it go, don't overthink, or keep the peace. But these are often veiled requests to stay asleep. Standing in truth means refusing to shrink for approval. It's choosing clarity over popularity, authenticity over acceptance. Those who stand tall in truth will always stand apart, not above others, but beyond illusion. When you confront uncomfortable truths, you invite discomfort into your life intentionally. It's not self-punishment, it's purification. You begin to see your habits, attachments, and defenses for what they are: survival mechanisms. The goal isn't to erase them, but to outgrow them. Each truth you face peels away a layer of fear, and though it hurts at first, it reveals the person beneath raw, real, and finally whole. Uncomfortable truths often come disguised as conflict. A disagreement with someone close might reveal your unspoken boundaries. A failure might uncover your hidden fears of inadequacy. Life has a way of using tension as a mirror. The moment you stop blaming and start observing, you gain power. Every truth, no matter how hard, gives you a chance to reclaim authority over your own story. Standing tall doesn't mean being unaffected. It means remaining rooted. When truth shakes your world, let it. Don't rush to rebuild. Sit among the pieces and understand what each one represents. The fragments of your old self are not mistakes, they are lessons. Every truth broken open is an invitation to rebuild stronger, wiser, and freer. Strength is born from stillness, not reaction. The hardest truths to face are the ones about ourselves. It's easier to blame others for pain than to examine how we participated in it. But ownership is not guilt, it's freedom. When you take responsibility for your part, you reclaim your power to change the outcome. The victim seeks sympathy, the self-aware seek transformation. Truth empowers only those brave enough to face it fully. There's a sacred calm that follows confrontation with truth. Once you stop running, a silence forms not empty, but full of awareness. You begin to sense life without distortion. Decisions become clearer. Relationships become cleaner. You no longer need to manipulate outcomes or maintain appearances. Truth simplifies everything. It strips away drama and leaves behind authenticity, quiet, steady, unshakable. People often fear that truth will isolate them, but in reality, it connects them more deeply. When you stand in truth, you attract those who value honesty over comfort. The superficial falls away, making space for genuine bonds. You stop seeking validation and start sharing presence. In truth, there's no need for pretense, only respect for what is. Authenticity becomes your anchor, and from it, real connection blooms. Standing tall in uncomfortable truths means learning to coexist with tension without letting it consume you. Life will always present contradictions, love and loss, joy and pain, clarity and confusion. Strength comes not from escaping these dualities, but from balancing within them. When you can hold both fear and faith in the same breath, you've discovered maturity. Truth doesn't simplify life, it deepens it. To walk this path, you must trust that truth will never destroy what's meant for you. It may take away illusions, but it will never steal your essence. What's real will remain. Every truth you face sharpens your awareness, deepens your compassion, and strengthens your resolve. The storms of truth cleanse, but they also clarify the sky. Afterward, everything feels lighter, cleaner, more aligned with who you truly are. Standing tall in uncomfortable truths isn't about being fearless, it's about being faithful to reality. It's choosing honesty over illusion, awareness over avoidance, and authenticity over approval. When you stop fighting the truth, it stops fighting you. You begin to move through life with quiet confidence, not because it's easy, but because it's real. And in that reality, you find something unshakable: peace born from courage. Tension is not the enemy, it's the spark of transformation. Every great change begins in discomfort, in that subtle pull between what is and what could be. We spend much of life trying to smooth out tension, avoiding it like a threat, yet beneath its pressure lies energy raw, shaping, demanding to be understood. Honest tension doesn't destroy, it refines. It strips away the false harmony we hide behind and reveals what is real, necessary, and alive within us. When you allow tension to exist without rushing to fix it, you open the door to truth. That uneasy silence between two people, that restlessness before a big decision, that ache when something no longer fits, all of it is communication. It's life whispering, something wants to change. Avoiding that signal keeps you stagnant. Facing it transforms you. The power lies not in ending the tension, but in staying awake within it. Honest tension arises when truth meets resistance. It's the friction of authenticity rubbing against fear, expectation, or comfort. Instead of viewing it as conflict, see it as alignment in progress. Two realities, negotiating space to coexist. The tension doesn't mean you've failed. It means you've reached the edge of growth. The question isn't how to escape it, but how to breathe inside it until it teaches you balance. We often mistake harmony for peace. True harmony, however, is not the absence of tension, but the mastery of it. Think of a string instrument too tight, and it snaps, too loose, and it falls silent. Only in balanced tension does it create music. The same applies to life and relationships. Honest tension, when held with awareness, creates rhythm. It demands patience, listening, and humility, the qualities of real strength. Avoiding tension robs you of authenticity. When you silence your truth to keep the peace, you create false stability. It may look calm on the surface, but underneath, resentment brews. Over time, that unspoken tension turns into bitterness, the quiet corrosion of self-respect. Honest confrontation, though uncomfortable, clears the air. It's not about conflict, it's about clean energy, the oxygen that truth needs to breathe. Tension also reveals what truly matters to you. The things that make you uneasy usually hold meaning. When a situation stirs emotion or challenge, it's touching a core value: integrity, freedom, love, respect. Instead of labeling it as negativity, ask, what is this tension trying to protect? That simple question shifts you from reaction to reflection. Every tension has a message. Every discomfort carries insight. Honest tension doesn't always resolve quickly. It lingers, asking for maturity and presence. It teaches you to slow down, to listen more deeply than you speak. It invites you to explore nuance, that delicate space where opposing truths coexist. You learn that being right is less important than being real, and that strength often means staying curious in the face of discomfort. Growth requires friction. Without it, nothing sharpens. In relationships, honest tension builds depth. When two people can stand in truth without retreating into silence or attack, they create trust. It's not agreement that bonds them, but transparency. Real intimacy is not smooth, it's textured. It's the courage to say, I see things differently, but I still care. When both stay grounded through the friction, the relationship becomes a space of evolution, not avoidance. The world teaches us to chase comfort, but comfort rarely builds character. Tension, on the other hand, reveals it. When faced with challenge, you meet the parts of yourself that are untested: your patience, empathy, and resilience. You discover that peace isn't the absence of struggle, it's the confidence to stay calm in the middle of it. Every time you choose to face tension consciously, you expand your capacity for life itself. There's a purity in honest tension because it cannot be faked. It demands sincerity. You can't navigate it with pretense. It exposes what's real. In that exposure, you learn the power of vulnerability, not as weakness, but as truth revealed without defense. To stand in tension without armoring yourself is to declare, "I trust myself enough to stay open." That is where transformation begins, not through control, but through surrender to awareness. Most people think tension needs resolution, but some tensions are meant to stay. They are the creative pulse of existence, the push and pull between what was and what could be. Artists, thinkers, and leaders live in that space, turning uncertainty into expression. Life's beauty often emerges not in certainty, but in contrast. The tension between dark and light, loss and hope, fear and courage, it's what gives depth to the human experience. When you no longer fear tension, you begin to use it. It becomes fuel instead of friction. You start to see that every uncomfortable moment is a mirror reflecting where you've stopped growing. The irritation, the defensiveness, the unease, all signs pointing toward a truth you haven't accepted yet. Once you see it clearly, tension transforms from obstacle to guide, showing you the path to strength. Honest tension teaches humility. It reminds you that understanding is not ownership. You can't force others to see your truth, nor can you demand comfort in every exchange. Sometimes, standing tall means standing alone in your awareness until the world catches up. Maturity is knowing when to speak and when to stay still, not out of fear, but respect for timing. Patience is power in motion. There's a sacred stillness that comes when you stop resisting tension. The storm may rage, but within you there's space, a quiet observer, watching the clash of opposites. In that awareness, you realize that tension is simply energy, asking to be transformed. The moment you stop labeling it as bad, it loses its grip. You begin to feel its rhythm, to dance with its pulse, and to grow with its wisdom. Honest tension is the birthplace of authenticity. It shapes your character, clarifies your truth, and strengthens your boundaries. It's not something to fear, but something to honor, a reminder that you are alive, evolving, and awake. The greatest peace you'll ever know isn't found in avoiding conflict, but in mastering the art of standing calmly in its presence. That is where power lives, silent, steady, and real. Anger is noise loud, fiery, and fleeting. Calm is power quiet, steady, and lasting. Where anger burns, calm endures. Most people confuse silence with weakness and composure with surrender. Yet, true calm is the highest form of control. It's the moment when you realize you don't need to shout to be heard. You've already mastered the one voice that truly matters, your own. Calm doesn't mean you feel nothing. It means you feel everything and still choose how to respond. Anger reacts, calm decides. The one who remains centered in chaos holds the real authority in any situation. The storm may roar around you, but your stillness becomes the eye of it, the place where clarity lives. This is not suppression, it's precision. It's knowing your peace is too valuable to trade for temporary rage. In a world addicted to reaction, calmness becomes rebellion. Everyone is quick to speak, to attack, to defend, but very few are willing to pause. That pause is your power. It's where wisdom enters before words. The calm person doesn't avoid confrontation, they refine it. Their presence changes the temperature of the room. Where others lose themselves, they return to themselves fully. The calm person is not cold, they are clear. They understand that emotion is energy, and energy misused creates damage. Anger can destroy bridges in seconds that took years to build. But calm gives you time to choose which bridges deserve to stand and which ones must burn. It's not detachment, it's discernment. Calm allows you to see what anger blinds you to. Anger seeks validation, calm seeks resolution. One wants to win, the other wants to understand. Anger asks, "How do I prove my point?" Calm asks, "What is the truth here?" The difference is subtle but transformative. Calm transforms arguments into awareness. It listens, not to reply, but to reveal clarity. It doesn't fight the noise, it transcends it. Remaining calm when provoked is one of the purest forms of strength. It's easy to lose control when someone challenges your pride, But mastery begins when you realize not every challenge deserves your fire. Some words are traps designed to pull you into chaos. Calm is your refusal to be dragged into their storm. It is dignity in motion, quiet, sharp, and immovable. The power of calm is not passive, it's active restraint, the art of holding your fire until it becomes light instead of destruction. Calm doesn't suppress emotion, it redirects it. It channels the same energy that could explode outward and turns it into clarity, patience, and focus. You learn to respond with strategy, not reaction. The strongest warriors are not the loudest, they are the most composed. Anger thrives on speed. Calm operates in time. When you slow down, you take power back from the moment. That pause between stimulus and response is sacred space. It's where evolution happens. You can feel the heat rise and still choose direction. The angry person is controlled by the moment. The calm person commands it. Presence is a weapon. Anger will never understand. Calm is not weakness. It's the refusal to hand your power away. When you react impulsively, you become predictable. And predictable people are easy to control. Calm makes you unpredictable because you're grounded in awareness, not emotion. You move with intention, not impulse. That composure confuses those who rely on chaos. They can't fight someone who refuses to enter the battlefield. There's a quiet dominance in calm energy. It doesn't demand attention, it commands respect. People sense it before you speak. It's the steadiness that makes others question their own instability. When you're calm, you shift dynamics without aggression. You don't overpower others. You center yourself so deeply that everything around you adjusts. The calm person doesn't seek control, they are control. Calm gives you perspective, and perspective ends unnecessary suffering. When anger blinds you, you see only your wound. But calm shows you the whole picture, the reasons, the patterns, the humanity on both sides. It allows empathy to exist alongside strength. To be calm is not to excuse harm, it's to address it from wisdom rather than woundedness. That's how real change happens, not through noise, but through clarity. Many people think staying calm means suppressing emotion, but it's the opposite. It's the art of feeling deeply without drowning. You let emotion move through you, not rule you. The calm person doesn't deny their anger. They sit with it until it speaks truth instead of impulse. Every emotion has a message, but only stillness can hear it clearly. Calm translates chaos into understanding. The beauty of calmness is that it disarms aggression. When someone yells and you don't mirror their energy, they lose their grip. Your calm becomes a mirror, showing them their own imbalance. This isn't manipulation, it's energetic mastery. You don't fight fire with fire, you let it burn itself out. People can argue with your words, but not with your peace. Calmness is also a shield. When you refuse to match someone's chaos, you protect your mind from their energy. You learn that not every battle deserves your attention, and not every insult needs a reply. Silence becomes strategy, not surrender. It allows the noise to expose itself while you remain untouched. The calm mind sees more, feels more, and chooses less, and that is wisdom. In leadership, calmness separates authority from ego. The leader who remains centered under pressure earns trust. Anger motivates through fear. Calm inspires through respect. When you lead from peace, others rise to your rhythm. They mirror your energy because calm is contagious. It communicates confidence without arrogance, the quiet certainty of someone who knows their worth and doesn't need to prove it. Calmness also deepens relationships. When you learn to pause before reacting, you create space for connection instead of collision. You start to hear what people mean, not just what they say. You stop trying to win conversations and start trying to understand hearts. That kind of calm presence heals more than any apology ever could. It teaches others that peace is not absence of conflict, it's maturity within it. Anger burns fast and leaves ashes. Calm builds slowly and leaves foundation. Each time you choose composure over reaction, you strengthen a muscle that cannot be shaken. You stop fearing confrontation because you no longer lose yourself inside it. You realize that being calm doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care wisely. You respond in ways that create growth, not regret. Calmness is not learned in easy times. It's forged in chaos, in the moments when everything inside you wants to explode, yet you choose to breathe. Each breath is a small victory, each silence a reclaiming of power. Calm isn't born overnight. It's built through practice, reflection, and restraint. Every time you stay centered when provoked, you become more unbreakable. The path to calm is self-awareness. You can't control what you don't understand. The more you know your triggers, the less they control you. Calmness begins with observation, the ability to notice emotion without becoming it. You start to recognize that you are not your anger. You are the awareness behind it. Once you see that, anger loses its authority, and calm becomes your natural state. There's a difference between being quiet and being calm. Quiet can be suppression, the silence of fear, or avoidance. Calm is presence, the silence of power. One hides, the other radiates. Calmness doesn't mean retreating from life. It means showing up fully without being consumed. It's the balance of strength and softness, clarity and compassion. Calm allows forgiveness to exist where anger demands punishment. It doesn't mean forgetting. It means freeing yourself from carrying pain forward. When you're calm, you can see that holding on to rage only anchors you to the past. Releasing it doesn't excuse others. It liberates you. Forgiveness, born of calm, is not weakness. It's emotional freedom disguised as grace. In moments of conflict, calm is often misunderstood. People may accuse you of not caring or being detached. But calmness isn't absence, it's alignment. You're not disengaged. You're deeply centered. You see the emotion, the chaos, the noise, and you remain anchored in truth. That steadiness unsettles those who depend on reaction. Your calm exposes what their anger hides. Calm is the language of mastery. It's the signal of someone who has walked through storms and no longer fears the thunder. Every challenge becomes a test of equilibrium, not of control over others, but of self. You start to measure success not by how much you dominate, but by how little you are disturbed. That's when you realize peace isn't passive. It's the sharpest edge there is. There's immense strength in being calm in a world that profits from outrage. Everything around you is designed to provoke media, opinions, competition, ego. To stay centered amidst it all is a radical act of self-sovereignty. Calmness becomes your quiet revolution. You stop being manipulated by noise and start moving with clarity, purpose, and grace. The calm person learns that every reaction is a choice, not an obligation. You can acknowledge anger without obeying it. You can face hostility without losing compassion. That's where your true influence lies, in your ability to remain yourself when others forget who they are. Calm isn't denial of fire, it's mastery of flame. When you embody calmness, even your silence speaks. People feel it before they understand it. It creates an invisible authority, the kind that doesn't shout, but shifts everything around it. Calm is magnetic because it's rare. In a world full of noise, your stillness becomes a signal, a reminder that power doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it simply breathes. Calm isn't the absence of anger. It's the evolution of it. It's anger refined into wisdom, emotion transformed into awareness, fire turned into light. Calm is the sound of inner peace, echoing louder than the chaos outside. It's the mark of someone who has learned the ultimate truth. Control over self is the highest form of strength, and calm will always speak louder than anger. There comes a quiet moment in every life when pretending no longer works, when the noise of others' expectations fades, and a small inner voice whispers, "It's time to choose you." It doesn't arrive with fireworks or applause. It comes softly, often after exhaustion, heartbreak, or disappointment. It's the point where you realize that continuing to abandon yourself is no longer survival, it's self-erasure. Choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's sacred reclamation. For years, you may have given your energy to pleasing others, shaping your words to fit their comfort, shrinking your light to protect their insecurities, bending your boundaries for temporary peace. But every time you betray your truth, a part of your soul goes silent. You begin to lose the rhythm of who you really are. Choosing yourself means turning toward that silence and listening again. It's the first step back home. To choose yourself is to honor your worth, even when others overlook it. It means realizing that your value doesn't require validation. The moment you stop performing for approval, you discover a new kind of strength. Quiet, grounded, unshakable. You start doing things not because they'll be liked, but because they're true. Freedom begins the day you stop negotiating your authenticity for acceptance. Choosing yourself isn't dramatic, it's deliberate. It happens in small, decisive acts. Saying no when you mean no, walking away when peace costs too much, standing tall when silence feels safer. These are the moments that redefine you. It's not about rebellion, it's about return. You're not walking away from people, you're walking toward alignment. You are remembering that you are allowed to belong fully to yourself. When you choose yourself, you begin to lose what no longer fits. Some people will fall away, not because you've changed, but because you've stopped pretending. The roles you once played no longer suit the story you're writing now. It's painful at first, shedding the familiar always is, but emptiness creates room for authenticity. Every ending born from self-respect is actually a beginning in disguise. The hardest part of choosing yourself is the guilt. We are conditioned to believe that self-prioritization equals selfishness. But there's a vast difference between self-centeredness and self-honoring. One isolates, the other empowers. When you care for yourself first, your giving becomes cleaner, freer, unburdened by resentment. You no longer love out of depletion, but out of fullness. Choosing yourself is how you learn to love others truthfully. There's a version of you that exists only on the other side of boundaries. The version that breathes freely, speaks clearly, and rests without apology. Boundaries aren't walls, they're clarity. They define what honors your peace and what disrupts it. When you start honoring those lines, you stop attracting chaos disguised as connection. The world begins to respect what you consistently respect in yourself. Sometimes, choosing yourself looks like walking alone for a while. Solitude becomes your sanctuary, not loneliness, but renewal. You learn to enjoy your own company, to find peace in your own presence. It's in that space of quiet independence that you remember your power isn't conditional. You stop seeking someone to complete you and start realizing you were never incomplete. Wholeness was waiting beneath the noise. To choose yourself means to trust your intuition again, that deep, ancient voice that always knew the way. You silenced it once to avoid judgment, but now it becomes your compass. It whispers through subtle feelings, discomfort, curiosity, and stillness. The more you honor it, the louder it grows. Every time you follow your intuition over external noise, you strengthen your relationship with truth. You start to see that your worth isn't earned through productivity or praise. You are valuable simply because you exist, because you breathe, grow, and experience. The world teaches you to prove yourself endlessly, but your spirit craves permission to just be. Choosing yourself means detaching your identity from constant doing. It's remembering that rest, joy, and stillness are not rewards, they're rights. When you choose yourself, your definition of success changes. It's no longer about applause, accumulation, or competition. Success becomes inner alignment, waking up peaceful, living authentically, sleeping without regret. You stop measuring your life by external milestones and start measuring it by how true you feel to your essence. Authenticity replaces ambition as your guiding star. The world may not celebrate your choice at first. People accustomed to your compliance might call you distant, selfish, or difficult, but their discomfort is not your responsibility. When you no longer play small to keep others comfortable, you force them to confront their own shadows. Some will resist, others will grow with you. Choosing yourself filters your life, it doesn't isolate it. Every great transformation requires loss. When you choose yourself, you lose versions of you built from pleasing others. You lose the illusion of control, the craving for approval, the fear of being misunderstood. But what remains is real, the grounded, untamed essence of who you are. You trade false harmony for honest peace, and that's a trade worth everything. The moment you choose yourself is not loud, it's steady. It happens quietly in your chest when you decide to stop abandoning your needs. You feel it when you say no for the first time and don't explain why. You feel it when you rest without guilt. You feel it when you realize your energy is sacred and not everyone deserves access to it. Self-respect starts to feel like oxygen. As you grow, you realize that not everyone is meant to walk your entire path. Some people were teachers of lessons, not keepers of loyalty. Choosing yourself means blessing them for their role and continuing on. You stop holding on to relationships that survive only through self-betrayal. Love that requires you to shrink isn't love, it's dependency. Real love expands who you are, not erases it. Choosing yourself changes the energy of every room you walk into. You stop seeking to be understood and start radiating understanding. Your calm becomes contagious. You no longer chase connection, you attract it. When you respect your own energy, you naturally align with those who do the same. Life begins to mirror your inner clarity with external peace. There's strength in realizing you are not responsible for saving everyone. You can offer empathy without sacrificing your sanity. You can love deeply without losing yourself in the process. Choosing yourself is how you sustain compassion. It ensures that your giving doesn't drain your soul. The more you honor your limits, the more genuine your love becomes. You'll notice that life simplifies when you choose yourself. Drama fades, urgency softens, and everything unnecessary falls away. You begin to trust timing instead of forcing outcomes. You no longer chase what doesn't align because you finally understand what is truly meant for you will never demand you to abandon yourself. Peace becomes your filter for decisions. In choosing yourself, you also choose accountability. You stop blaming others for the patterns you've allowed. This isn't self-blame, it's self-empowerment. You realize that taking responsibility for your peace gives you control over your future. Every boundary, every choice, every silence becomes a declaration that you trust yourself to lead your own life. Choosing yourself invites both liberation and loneliness, but only temporarily. The space that feels empty at first is the clearing where authenticity grows. It's the soil where confidence takes root. The loneliness fades, replaced by peace that no crowd can give. You start enjoying solitude because it no longer feels like absence, it feels like presence. When you choose yourself, your voice changes. It carries conviction instead of confusion. You no longer seek to convince, you simply express. You speak from clarity, not fear. People may not always agree with you, but they will always feel your truth. That's the mark of self-alignment. Your energy becomes louder than your words. There's a sacred elegance in self-choosing. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. You no longer chase, beg, or force, you flow. You no longer explain your worth, you embody it. Choosing yourself teaches you that peace and power can coexist. You stop proving and start existing, fully grounded, grateful, and free. Every boundary you set becomes a promise to your future self. You're saying, I will not abandon you again. You learn to protect your energy, not from fear, but from wisdom. The more you honor your truth, the more your life aligns with purpose. Everything that's real begins to stay. Everything false begins to fade. In the quiet after choosing yourself, you begin to heal. The wounds of overgiving start to close. The exhaustion turns into ease. The guilt dissolves into grace. You look around and realize nothing external changed dramatically, yet everything feels different. You finally exhale because you're no longer at war with yourself. The moment you choose yourself is the moment your life begins to align. It's when you stop asking for permission and start living from purpose. It's when your presence becomes your statement, your peace becomes your protest, and your authenticity becomes your freedom. From that moment forward, you no longer chase love, you become it. The journey continues, not toward more, but toward you. Choosing yourself is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of living it truthfully. It's the day you return to your own heart and realize that the home you've been searching for was never outside. It was always within. That is the quiet revolution of self-respect, the courage to belong completely to yourself. Respect is the silent boundary where self-worth meets the world. It is not demanded through force, nor begged for through silence. It is earned through energy. The edge of respect is the invisible line that defines how you allow others to treat you and how you treat yourself. It's not an argument, not a speech, it's presence. The way you carry yourself teaches others what you will and will not allow. Every relationship, whether personal or professional, rests on the foundation of respect. Love without respect turns controlling. Authority without respect becomes tyranny. Friendship without respect fades into convenience. The edge of respect is the point where equality begins. It's where you meet others, not from fear or pride, but from truth. Two souls standing on their own ground, neither shrinking nor towering. Respect is not about titles, wealth, or status. It's about awareness. It's the quiet understanding that every person, including you, has inherent worth. When you respect yourself, you automatically recognize dignity in others. But when you abandon self-respect, you unconsciously invite disrespect. The outer world mirrors the boundaries you hold within. Self-respect is the soil from which all healthy connection grows. To live on the edge of respect means knowing where courtesy ends and compromise begins. It's about balance, giving grace without losing ground, offering empathy without surrendering self. You can be kind without being a doormat and firm without being cruel. Respect thrives in that middle space, strong enough to stand, soft enough to understand. That's where integrity lives. People often mistake fear for respect. They confuse obedience with reverence. But fear only breeds silence, not sincerity. True respect cannot be forced. It must be inspired. It arises when your words align with your actions, when your character holds steady through pressure. You don't earn respect through dominance. You earn it through consistency, through being the same person when no one is watching. When you respect yourself, your boundaries become natural, not defensive. You no longer need to explain why you're saying no or justify your needs. Your energy speaks before your words do. Self-respect shows up in posture, tone, and decisions. It's not about arrogance, it's about alignment. You become calm, certain, and quietly firm, and that composure teaches others how to approach you. The edge of respect often reveals itself through discomfort. When someone crosses your line, it's not an accident, it's an opportunity. It's the moment you decide whether to reinforce your worth or to abandon it. Every violation is a test of awareness. You can either shrink in silence or stand in truth. The moment you choose truth, the lesson shifts from pain to power. Many people sacrifice respect for belonging. They think being liked is the same as being valued. But acceptance that costs your dignity isn't connection, it's dependency. The need to be understood by everyone is the trap that keeps many people small. When you choose respect over approval, you start to attract relationships built on truth, not convenience. You stop chasing validation and start living in alignment. Respect doesn't always mean agreement. You can honor someone's perspective while holding your own. Maturity means you no longer need to win every debate. You simply refuse to lose yourself in one. The edge of respect is the place where listening replaces reacting and understanding replaces ego. You learn to hold space for difference without diluting your truth. That balance is rare and powerful. There are moments in life when respect means walking away. No confrontation, no closure, just quiet departure. Not every battle deserves your presence. Not every person deserves access to your peace. Distance is sometimes the deepest form of self-respect. You don't leave to punish, you leave to preserve. Silence can speak volumes when it's rooted in self-worth. Respect grows where communication is clean. When you express yourself honestly, you invite clarity. When you avoid or manipulate, you invite confusion. Honesty may create temporary discomfort, but dishonesty creates permanent damage. Speaking your truth, even softly, is an act of respect for both yourself and the other person. Clarity is kindness. Avoidance is neglect in disguise. To stand on the edge of respect, you must know your values. If you don't define what matters most, others will define it for you. Your values are your compass. They guide your reactions and decisions when life tests you. When you know who you are, you stop negotiating your worth. You no longer bend for every passing opinion because your foundation is already solid. Self-respect also means accountability. It's not about perfection but ownership. When you make a mistake, you admit it without self-destruction. You apologize without losing integrity. The person who can look in the mirror and say, "I was wrong," carries more power than one who hides behind ego. Accountability strengthens respect because it shows courage, not weakness. There will always be people who misunderstand your boundaries. They'll call you difficult, cold, or distant because your self-respect disrupts their comfort. But remember, your peace will always feel like rejection to those who profit from your silence. The edge of respect isn't built to please, it's built to protect. Let misunderstanding be the price of authenticity. Respect doesn't seek revenge, it seeks distance. You don't need to prove anyone wrong or expose their wrongdoings. The universe has a rhythm. It balances truth with time. All you need to do is stay aligned. Revenge wastes energy. Respect conserves it. The one who walks away with grace holds the real power. You win nothing by lowering your standards. The edge of respect is not a hard wall. It's a living boundary that breathes with awareness. Sometimes it requires firmness. Other times, compassion. You learn to sense when to step forward and when to step back. Respect is fluid, but never weak. It adjusts to reality without losing its center. This flexibility is what turns respect into wisdom. When you respect yourself, you no longer need to control how others perceive you. You understand that perception is filtered through their own wounds and fears. Your job isn't to convince, it's to be consistent. Time always reveals what's true. When your actions align with your principles long enough, respect becomes inevitable, even from those who once doubted you. Respect deepens when you learn to listen. Listening isn't waiting for your turn to speak. It's seeking to understand before responding. It's realizing that every voice, even the one you disagree with, holds a piece of truth. When you listen without judgment, you elevate the entire conversation. Respect isn't agreement, it's acknowledgement of humanity. The edge of respect is also where forgiveness lives. Forgiveness doesn't mean letting people back in. It means releasing the emotional grip they have on you. It's understanding that resentment poisons your peace more than it punishes others. You forgive not to condone, but to cleanse. Forgiveness is respect turned inward, the act of freeing yourself from what's already over. Respect and humility walk hand in hand. Arrogance demands attention, humility commands it. The more you respect yourself, the less you need to prove. You stop chasing superiority and start embracing balance. True humility doesn't shrink, it stands tall without comparison. It's the recognition that dignity and grace coexist at the same height. Respect for others begins with curiosity. When you seek to understand before judging, you bridge distance. Every person carries a story that shaped their behavior. Understanding doesn't excuse harm, but it explains humanity. The more you understand people, the less you take things personally. And that's where compassion and respect meet, not in agreement, but in awareness. When two people respect each other, conflict becomes creation, not destruction. Conversations turn into collaborations. Differences expand understanding instead of dividing it. Respect doesn't dissolve tension, it refines it. It turns argument into dialogue, distance into connection. On the edge of respect, growth replaces ego as the goal. The more you practice respect, the more peace you invite. Your world starts to quiet down because you no longer react to everything. You recognize what deserves your energy and what doesn't. This discernment creates a life that feels lighter, cleaner, more intentional. Respect filters chaos. It protects your frequency from noise. Living on the edge of respect means leading with principle, not emotion. You can care deeply and still stand firmly. You can forgive and still set boundaries. You can walk away and still wish someone well. Strength and compassion are not opposites. They are the dual heartbeat of respect. Mastering both is the mark of inner maturity. Respect isn't something you demand. It's something you embody. It's felt in your tone, your choices, your stillness. You teach others how to treat you by how consistently you honor yourself. The edge of respect isn't a boundary against the world. It's a bridge to meet it consciously. And when you stand on that edge, you finally realize dignity isn't earned through noise. It's maintained through presence. Words are invisible flames. They can warm or they can burn. Every sentence we speak carries energy, intention, and impact. The fire of words is something every soul must walk through, because speech reveals the truth of the heart. What you say can build bridges or burn them, heal wounds or reopen them. The strength of your character isn't measured by how loud you speak, but by how carefully you use your voice when emotions rise. When you walk through the fire of words, you realize that silence is often your greatest armor. Not every insult deserves an echo, and not every accusation demands defense. Sometimes peace speaks louder than explanation. Words can be weapons or instruments, and wisdom is knowing when to play and when to pause. The calm mind chooses expression with precision, not impulsiveness. That is how maturity survives the flames. There will be moments when words from others sting sharp, careless, and undeserved. You'll want to respond, to defend your honor, to match their fire with yours. But the one who reacts gives away control. The one who observes keeps it. The art of restraint is not weakness, it's awareness. It's the understanding that your silence can often expose truth louder than any retort ever could. Every conversation carries a temperature. Some are warm, built on curiosity and understanding. Others are scorching, filled with blame and assumption. The wise learn to sense the heat and decide whether to step in or step back. You don't have to attend every verbal battle you're invited to. Protecting your peace doesn't make you passive, it makes you powerful. You can walk through the fire without letting it consume you. Words are mirrors of consciousness. They reveal what people hide behind appearances. Anger in words exposes pain. Cruelty exposes insecurity. Dishonesty exposes fear. When you learn to listen beyond tone, you begin to see the truth that emotion tries to disguise. Understanding the story behind someone's words allows you to respond with clarity instead of reaction. That's the mastery of awareness. Sometimes, walking through the fire of words means confronting your own. The things you say in anger often echo longer than you intended. Once spoken, words cannot be unsaid. They leave marks, seen or unseen. The responsibility of language is immense. Every time you speak, you create a vibration that either uplifts or wounds. Power is not in volume, it's in intention. Your words should heal more than they hurt. Apologies cannot erase impact, but they can restore respect. Owning your words when they cause pain is not humiliation, it's integrity. The person who can say, "I was wrong," carries more grace than the one who hides behind pride. Accountability cools the fire. It teaches others that you value peace over ego. Words that acknowledge truth rebuild trust, one sentence at a time. To master the fire of words, you must learn to speak from consciousness, not emotion. Words born of reaction scatter like sparks, but words born of awareness burn steady like a lantern. They illuminate instead of incinerate. The goal of speech is not to win, but to connect, not to destroy, but to reveal understanding. Every mindful word becomes an act of peacemaking. The power of listening is often underestimated. Most people hear to respond, not to understand. But when you listen fully, not to refute, but to feel, you absorb more than information, you absorb humanity. Listening cools the flames of conflict. It allows others to drop their defenses because they feel seen. And when people feel seen, they no longer need to shout. Sometimes, silence is the loudest truth. When words fail to reach someone blinded by ego or pain, silence steps in as the teacher. It says, "I won't argue my worth." You don't have to correct every misperception or chase every misunderstanding. Time will translate your intentions better than any speech ever could. Let silence protect your energy when words can't. The fire of words also reveals your emotional intelligence. The way you respond when provoked defines your power. You can't control what others say, but you can control how much of it you absorb. A mature soul filters through compassion, hearing pain behind attack, confusion behind criticism. You don't need to agree, but you can understand. That's how empathy walks through fire without burning. Every conversation leaves residue. Some leave you lighter, others leave you heavy. Pay attention to the energy words bring. If you leave a conversation drained or angry, something in it didn't align with truth. Protecting your mental space means choosing which dialogues deserve your energy. Not every discussion is meant for your participation. Some fires are meant to burn out without you. Walking through the fire of words also means owning your voice. There will be times when silence is mistaken for weakness, and you must speak truth despite the risk. Courage isn't always loud, but it's always honest. Speaking your truth doesn't require aggression, it requires clarity. A steady voice, grounded in conviction, can shift an entire room more than shouting ever could. The most powerful people don't speak to dominate, they speak to elevate. Their words carry weight because they come from understanding, not arrogance. They've learned that tone matters as much as truth. You can say the right thing in the wrong way and still cause harm. Graceful communication is truth wrapped in compassion. It's how wisdom touches the world gently. Words can build nations or destroy them. They can start wars or end them. Every movement in history began with a sentence that resonated deeply enough to ignite hearts. That's why awareness is sacred, because speech shapes reality. What you repeat becomes belief, and what you believe becomes action. When your words align with purpose, they stop being mere sounds. They become vibrations that move the world. The fire of words is not only external, it burns within your own mind. The inner dialogue you carry determines your confidence, your peace, your resilience. The voice you use to speak to yourself should be the kindest one you know. Self-talk is not background noise, it's your foundation. If your inner words are harsh, no external validation will ever feel like peace. Walking through the fire means confronting gossip and rumor, the voices that twist truth for entertainment. You cannot stop people from speaking about you, but you can choose to live so authentically that no lie sticks. When you no longer fear misrepresentation, you reclaim your power. Let your actions speak the words others distort. Truth doesn't need defense, it needs time. The greatest test of restraint comes when someone tries to provoke you. The temptation to fight back, to match energy, to set the record straight, feels intoxicating. But wisdom whispers, not every fire deserves your flame. Choosing silence or measured response doesn't make you weak, it makes you wise. You preserve peace not by controlling others, but by controlling your response to them. The art of communication is also the art of timing. Words spoken too soon can wound. Words spoken too late can miss their healing moment. Listening to timing requires patience and awareness. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing, not because you don't care, but because you know the right moment hasn't arrived. Truth, delivered with timing, becomes transformation. To walk through the fire of words is to understand emotional alchemy. You take anger and turn it into articulation. You take hurt and shape it into wisdom. You take misunderstanding and refine it into clarity. This transformation is what makes your voice valuable, not because it's loud, but because it's evolved. Mastery of words begins with mastery of self. The words you withhold are just as important as the ones you speak. Silence, when rooted in awareness, protects energy. You learn that peace is not the absence of words, it's the presence of restraint. Restraint is strength in disguise. a quiet declaration that you choose intention over impulse. You become a guardian of energy rather than a reactor to noise. Kind words carry a power that endures beyond time. One sentence of genuine encouragement can stay in a person's heart for decades. Words are seeds. They grow where they are planted. Every time you speak from kindness, you plant something sacred in someone else's soil. You may never see it bloom, but your compassion leaves traces in the world. Sometimes, healing begins not with new advice, but with being heard. The ability to listen without judgment is a gift few offer. To walk through the fire of words means learning to hold space for others without needing to fix them. You understand that some hearts don't need answers, they need acknowledgement. True communication begins where ego ends. The fire of words teaches discernment, when to speak, when to stay silent, and when to walk away. It shows you that peace isn't the absence of dialogue, but the presence of understanding. You stop chasing the last word and start seeking the right one. You realize that expression is not about being louder, but being truer. In mastering words, you learn to speak less but mean more. You understand that language is sacred. Every word has weight, every silence has shape. You choose phrases that build, tones that heal, and pauses that give space for truth. You no longer speak to fill air, you speak to fill awareness. Your words become instruments of consciousness. Walking through the fire of words refines you. You emerge lighter, wiser, and more deliberate. You no longer speak to prove, you speak to connect. You no longer listen to defend, you listen to understand. The fire that once burned now illuminates. You realize that words, when mastered, are not just communication, they are creation. And through that mastery, you find peace in the very fire that once scared you. Truth is the armor no weapon can pierce. When you live in truth, you stop being fragile, because nothing anyone says can threaten what's already acknowledged within you. Lies create vulnerability, they need constant defense. Truth, on the other hand, stands effortlessly. It may shake the world around you, but it never trembles itself. To become untouchable through truth is not to escape the world's judgment, but to no longer depend on it. Truth is not comfort, it is liberation. It doesn't soothe the ego, it cleanses it. Many avoid truth because it strips away illusions that once felt safe. But illusion is a cage painted as paradise, beautiful, but suffocating. Truth breaks it open, sometimes painfully, sometimes quietly. It asks for courage, the willingness to see yourself as you are, not as you wish to appear. Only then can peace become permanent. Living truthfully begins as an act of rebellion in a world built on performance. We are taught to wear masks to fit in, to soften our edges to be accepted, but every mask becomes a prison. Each layer of pretending separates you from your essence. When you start telling the truth, not just to others, but to yourself, those layers fall away. What remains is raw, real, and radiant. Truth makes you untouchable because it frees you from the need to hide. When you've faced your own darkness, no one can use it against you. The moment you say, "Yes, that's who I was, but not who I am," you take the sting out of every accusation. Your vulnerability becomes your protection, because authenticity disarms manipulation. You cannot be blackmailed by the truth you already own. The pursuit of truth is not an external journey. It is an inward excavation. You dig through memories, conditioning, and inherited beliefs to uncover your core. This excavation is messy. It disrupts comfort and exposes contradiction. But each layer you peel back reveals integrity. Truth is not something you find once. It's something you practice daily, in thoughts, choices, and interactions. Truth and peace walk hand in hand. Deception creates noise, an endless loop of self-doubt and confusion. But truth simplifies everything. It cuts through mental clutter like a blade through fog. When you live honestly, you no longer waste energy maintaining appearances. You can finally rest inside your own skin. Peace isn't the absence of chaos, it's the presence of authenticity. Becoming untouchable doesn't mean you stop feeling pain. It means pain no longer defines you. Truth gives you context, the understanding that discomfort is part of awakening. You stop interpreting hardship as punishment and start seeing it as purification. Each truth faced removes one more layer of fear until you stand bare, strong, and transparent. No armor, yet invincible. The truth teller walks a lonely path at first. Not everyone will celebrate your clarity. Many prefer comfort over honesty. Speaking truth disturbs systems built on silence. You might lose approval, even connection. But what you gain is worth more alignment with your soul. It's better to be rejected for authenticity than loved for imitation. Real love can only meet you where truth begins. There's a subtle power in transparency. When you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. People may still judge, gossip, or distort, but their opinions no longer shape your identity. Truth gives you internal sovereignty. You move through life grounded, unshaken by the shifting perceptions of others. You don't chase explanations, your clarity is explanation enough. Truth exposes, but it also empowers. It reveals where you've been lying to yourself, staying in relationships out of guilt, pursuing careers out of fear, clinging to identities out of habit. It breaks illusions that kept you safe but small. The exposure is uncomfortable, but the freedom is unmatched. Once you know the truth, you can't unknow it, and that's where transformation begins. To live in truth, you must face your contradictions without shame. You can be strong and still healing, wise and still learning, kind and still imperfect. Truth is not about purity, it's about wholeness. When you accept your duality, no insult can destabilize you. What others use to attack becomes part of your narrative, not as a wound, but as evidence of growth. The untouchable person doesn't argue their truth, they embody it. They don't debate their worth or defend their path. They understand that explanation is a trap that feeds misunderstanding. Instead, they live in alignment, allowing time and consistency to speak louder than persuasion. Truth doesn't chase recognition, it radiates self-evidence. Honesty with yourself is the beginning of all power. You can't live a free life while lying about what you want, what you feel, or what you need. Suppressing truth breeds anxiety. Expressing it breeds alignment. The body even reacts, it feels lighter when truth is spoken. Your energy returns because you no longer waste it maintaining illusions. Truth also refines your relationships. When you live honestly, you attract people who value depth over comfort. The superficial falls away, and the sincere remains. Some may leave, not out of malice, but because they no longer resonate with your frequency. Truth doesn't destroy connections. It purifies them. It filters what's meant to stay and releases what's not. Becoming untouchable through truth doesn't mean becoming emotionless. It means becoming emotionally intelligent. You feel fully, but react wisely. You speak truth, not to wound, but to clarify. You learn that honesty without empathy is cruelty, and empathy without honesty is weakness. The balance of both makes your words healing instead of harsh. Truth humbles you. It shows you the times you've been both victim and villain, wise and blind, loving and careless. It dismantles superiority and teaches compassion. Once you see yourself clearly, judgment toward others fades. You no longer criticize from ego because you recognize the same struggles within yourself. Truth softens arrogance into understanding. There's an undeniable radiance in people who live truthfully. They walk lighter, speak clearer, and carry a calm that feels unshakable. Their energy doesn't demand attention, it commands it through authenticity. People sense something pure, something stable, something rare. That is the power of truth. It cannot be faked, and it cannot be taken away. To live in truth is to surrender control. You stop trying to manipulate outcomes or manage others' perceptions. You let honesty guide your steps, even when it leads into uncertainty. The irony is that once you stop forcing direction, life aligns effortlessly. Truth creates flow because it removes resistance. The path ahead clears as you walk it. You also become aware of the cost of dishonesty. Lies may protect you temporarily, but they collect interest in guilt, confusion, and restlessness. They demand constant upkeep, remembering what was said, hiding inconsistencies. Truth, though painful at first, is light. It needs no maintenance. It holds steady, without your effort, because it exists naturally. Becoming untouchable through truth doesn't mean being fearless. It means fearing the right things. You no longer fear judgment, but you fear self-betrayal. You no longer fear rejection, but you fear living a lie. That reordering of fear is transformation. You become guided not by avoidance, but by alignment. You choose truth, even when comfort begs otherwise. When you live by truth, conflict becomes cleaner. You no longer manipulate, defend, or exaggerate. You speak with clarity and listen without agenda. This transparency confuses those used to hidden motives. They can't fight what has no facade. Truth leaves no handle to grab, no weakness to exploit. That's why it's untouchable. It offers nothing to distort. Even your failures look different through truth. You stop calling them mistakes and start calling them mirrors. Every setback becomes information instead of shame. Truth removes drama from defeat. You see what went wrong without self-condemnation and adjust with humility. In that clarity, resilience grows naturally, not forced, but honest. Truth also changes how you forgive. You stop excusing harm and start understanding it. Forgiveness becomes wisdom, not weakness. It's not forgetting. It's releasing illusions about what could have been. When you forgive truthfully, you let reality stand, as it is no rewriting, no denial. Acceptance becomes the final act of peace. The deeper you walk into truth, the quieter your life becomes. You stop participating in gossip, manipulation, or emotional theater. Silence becomes sacred because you no longer need to prove anything. You start cherishing simplicity, real conversations, real people, real peace. Truth filters noise until only clarity remains. You realize truth doesn't need to be defended, only lived. Those who live in distortion may misunderstand you, but you no longer feel the urge to explain. Life itself becomes your proof. The stability in your energy, the peace in your eyes, the consistency in your actions, these become the language of truth, spoken without words. Becoming untouchable through truth is not about being above the world, but within it, uncorrupted. It's walking through chaos without losing your calm, facing lies without needing revenge, and living so honestly that nothing external can shake your inner foundation. Truth becomes your shelter, your sword, and your freedom. When all illusions fall away, only peace remains unshakable, unbothered, and untouchable. Confrontation isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving to yourself that your voice matters. Every time you face what scares you, you build a quieter kind of confidence, the kind that doesn't need to shout to be heard. Freedom isn't found in avoiding tension. It's found in walking through it with grace and strength. So the next time life challenges your peace, don't step back, stand steady, breathe deeply, and remember who you are. Because true freedom begins the moment you refuse to live small.